Let's bring in my colleague Graham Richardson, former Labor Minister himself. Richo, just in broad terms, when you look at Claire O'Neill and that response there, you reflect on the fact that the Prime Minister, he's more than happy to have his ministers take the lead on a lot of this stuff. He doesn't always have to be the front person. Is that something you've noticed with Albanese?
Yeah, I think Albo's view is you've got to give the troops a go, and he's right. And I think you've just seen a great example of it with Michelle O'Neill, who's a very impressive performer. Gee, she handled that well. I watched that with great interest. You know, there are a lot of people in the Australian Parliament who could serve in very high office, and she's one of them, but only one of them. She's very impressive, and more power to her.
When we look at the political situation in your home state of New South Wales right now, the news poll suggests things have narrowed in the lead up to the state election. Still, you'd rather be Mins on the numbers in the paper today, but does it give Perrottet some hope?
No, I mean, not if he's got any brains. And I've said before, I think Perrottet's the brightest politician I've ever met, with the possible exception of Paul Keating. He's an extraordinarily bright guy, and I think he can work out that one swallow a summer doth not make, and one poll an election isn't decided on. In the end, Perrottet is going to lose this election, but he'll do creditably because he's a good fellow who's working very hard.
It's a very different scenario to what we saw at the federal election, it seems. It's not a government that is toxic by any stretch, so we could be in for a long night come March 25.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a lot in it. I do expect Mins to win, but I think we'll be having a very long night, and I suspect we won't know the result for another 10 days after the election. It'll be that close. But you can just see momentum. You can just see that this is a government that's regarded as tired, and I think people the it's time factor will just about get Chris Mins over the line.
Well, it's one of those things, isn't it? After more than a decade, it's always hard to get one more term, and then you've got all the symptoms of a long government with internal fighting on display as well.
Yeah, well, you'll always get that once a government starts to get too long. I mean, a lot of people say maybe we should just have 6-year terms and swap parties each 6 years. And I think there's even some merit in that, because I don't think you should ever govern for too long. Ministers do get tired, do get too comfortable, and I'd much rather see them sweating about whether or not they're going to have their job next week.
The superannuation debate is an interesting one right now. What's your read on what you've seen from the Treasurer and the Prime Minister?
Well, look, I find superannuation too hard. Now, I've never ducked a question from you, Kieran, but I'm ducking this one. I reckon I don't understand superannuation. I try my hardest, but it has been made so difficult by so many changes over a short period of time that I don't think anyone understands it, which is a really dangerous thing. I don't think the average person's got a clue about what's happening with their super. And if someone like me finds it too hard, you can bet your life there's a few million out there who are finding it too hard as well.
So if the government were to cap, say, a super balance at $3 million for concessional tax treatment, $3 million, there are apparently 36,000 people with accounts of $3 million or more. Politically, does that hurt the government?
Not gravely, no. If you make it so that only 36,000 are affected out of a population of 25 million or whatever, it's not a big deal. And governments can and will survive it.
Richo, great to see you. See you next week.
Good on you, Kieran.